Wayne, always great to see you and great to have you in studio.
Good to see you, Jenny.
You saw what happened yesterday. President Obama invokes executive privilege at the 11th hour, and a lot of people, just what you heard the members of Congress saying, why now? What have they got to hide? Your reaction?
Well, it's what I said on CNN this morning. Executive privilege is the last gasp of a cover-up. There must be something in those papers that stinks to high heaven in order for them to walk into this briar patch. Because what they have done by doing what they did is center this issue in front of the whole national media, when the national media had been, by and large, joining with them and covering this whole thing up. So there must be something in those papers that just really stinks that they would be willing to walk into this briar patch and bust this whole issue out in the open.
Do you think just maybe it has to do with what the NRA and many others have been talking about from the start, that this was planned, that this was about advancing an anti-gun agenda that this president have? Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that this was an attack on the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, that's what Fast and Furious really was about. The fact is, that's what they're trying to hide. That's what I believe is in these papers that they don't want out, is proof of that. The election is going to be decided in all the big gun and hunting states. We all know the states: Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, North Carolina. I mean, there's about 10 or 12 of these states where there are huge numbers of gun owners and hunters. The president is trying to fog the issue. He's trying to say, I'm not attacking the Second Amendment. I believe what's in these papers is proof that this administration was attacking the Second Amendment. They knew exactly what they were doing. This was about putting these guns down there in Mexico, and then when they found them at crime scenes, going, aha, we need more gun laws in the United States. And that's what I believe is in these papers, and that's why I believe the president has joined with the Attorney General to cover this whole thing up. I mean, the president has two choices. He can either participate in the cover-up, or he can order his administration to tell the truth. And his behavior right now looks bad and suspicious.
You know, and it's interesting you point that out, because then Senator Obama, back in 2007, criticized then President Bush for invoking executive privilege. And, you know, he made comments about, you need to come clean on this. What are you hiding behind? There's a double standard here, isn't there?
Well, there's all kinds of double standards and dishonesty and duplicity that make the American people sick of what the political class does. I mean, whatever happened to look someone in the eye, a firm handshake, tell the truth? The political class in this town, more and more, that's why the American public has grown so cynical.
And yet, you know, you look at the vote yesterday, split right along party lines. You have people like Congressman Cummings talking about how this is all driven by partisan politics. And, you know, I remember Cummings himself saying that he would not rest until they got to the truth. And people need to remember, that's what this is about. We've got a dead Border Patrol agent. And yesterday you had Mrs. Terry on there saying, that's all we want is the truth, and why do you continue to hide?
And the Terry family deserves the truth. America deserves the truth. What the national news media is still not doing, though, is connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. Let's start from the very first time I heard this 90% thing. My gut told me it was false. We have about 80,000 law enforcement members of the NRA. I started to check with them. I called all the law enforcement people in the Bush administration. What did you guys see? They said we never saw that the drug cartels were getting their guns from the U.S. Maybe some small-time operators come in, try to do a straw man sale. They ought to be prosecuted. We never believed the cartels were getting them from the U.S. They're getting Russia, China. They're getting from the international black market, defections from the Mexican army, and a whole bunch of them coming through Central America. But what you had is and these are the dots that need to be connected. You had the president, the vice president, Hillary Clinton, the Attorney General Holder, sounding like a barbershop quartet with this 90%, 90%, 90%. They were trying to sell the American public on the idea that the guns the Mexican drug cartels were getting were coming from the United States. What Fast and Furious did and is open up a pipeline where it gave some substance to the lie that they were saying, that there were guns from the U.S. flowing to the Mexican drug cartels. And then when they'd catch those guns showing up at crime scenes down in Mexico, they weren't trying to trace them. They weren't tracking them. They lost track of all of them. But boy, when one of the guns that the Obama administration sent down to Mexico into the drug cartel's hands, when it showed up at a crime scene, then they went, aha, firearms from the United States. We need tougher gun laws in the United States. I believe this thing, if you connect the dots, it's pretty clear that this was about politics. It was about an anti-Second Amendment Obama administration agenda. They opened up a dealership. They opened up an illegal pipeline. They sent thousands of guns to Mexico. And it'd still be going on today if Agent Brian Terry hadn't been killed and some of those good agents down the line couldn't stand the stench of it anymore and risked their jobs and careers and started to speak out.
And also, as we found out, is if the Obama administration had its way, their plan was to hold honest gun dealers accountable for what was going on, for what the guns going across the border. They don't know what accountability is, but they were going to point their finger right at the gun dealer.
What the Obama administration did is send thousands and thousands of guns directly into the hands of some of the most evil people on the planet, the Mexican drug cartels. They didn't keep track of any of them. They had a massive campaign going on to manipulate public opinion in the United States to set the stage for more gun laws in the U.S. with this whole 90%, 90%, 90%. Hillary Clinton, Biden, President, the Attorney General, barbershop quartet on that. They were getting that repeated by the media all over this country. They were also ruining the lives of decent, honest American citizens that own gun shops, letting the media write horrible stories about how they were dirty, unscrupulous operators when this administration knew the truth, that they ordered those gun dealers like Bill Carter to make those sales. And they stood by in the Department of Justice and let these major papers in the country destroy the lives of these American citizens that were simply doing what the Obama administration Justice Department told them to do. And then when it all started to hit the fan, first they started to mumble ridiculous stuff like, well, in order to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. I mean, who are those eggs? Those eggs are innocent human beings, hundreds of them down in Mexico. Agent Brian Terry was one of those eggs. I mean, that can't be a metaphor that works. They crossed the line. They need to be held responsible.
I've got to ask you, though, Wayne. Here you have the committee. It votes on contempt. If it passes the full House, it goes to a U.S. attorney in D.C. who is a Democrat, who is a friend of Attorney General Eric Holder. Does that concern you about what happens next?
It all concerns. I mean, what this administration is clearly trying to do is punt this thing, fog it, and so the American public will not find out the truth until after the election. In my opinion, because they know that their fate rests on the gun states, the hunting states, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Carolina, Virginia, Missouri, Colorado, New Mexico. There are about 12 of these states, as I said before. And they don't want the public in those states to find out the truth about what they did and the hypocrisy of it all until after the election.
What do you think about the talk right now that, hey, maybe we can still negotiate a deal? I mean, is this what this is about, deal-making, when you got a dead Border Patrol agent? Is that what this is about?
We need to know the truth. We need all the papers. We need a special prosecutor. I mean, my gosh, Valerie Plame gets a special prosecutor, and all we get out of Fast and Furious, where hundreds are dead, a federal agent is dead, no one was killed in Watergate, is an Eric Holder cover-up. I mean, we need the Attorney General to resign. We need a special prosecutor in this. The White House will oppose it because a cover-up is a crime, but we need the truth. I mean, a government willing to do this makes your blood run cold. The fact is, if someone had willingly sent thousands of guns to the Mexican drug cartels, hundreds are dead, of federal agents dead, any prosecutor worth his salt would charge that person with accessory to murder. The president has two choices. He can either participate in a cover-up or he can order his administration to tell the truth. Right now, what he's done is join the Richard Nixon Club, and it doesn't look very good.
And you've got a president and an attorney general who are basically just thumbing their nose at the Constitution and the rule of law. To them, that doesn't matter. The president himself said, hey, the Constitution's getting in my way for me doing what I want to do.
If it suited the Obama administration's political agenda to release all the papers, they would. What we have here is it doesn't suit their political agenda to release these papers. They're hiding something. And that's why we're not seeing them. And we need to pursue every avenue to make sure we get the truth out to the American public.
Something the people who go to the polls in November need to remember. What's going on right now?
Hey, if we don't, this country's in trouble.
Simple as that.
It is as simple as that. I've said from the start, this is an election where all of our rights, all of our freedoms, all of our way of life, all the Second Amendment is on the line. And I've said to every gun owner, every supporter of the Second Amendment, and every American, all means you. No one can sit this one out.
All righty. Well, we'll see what happens next week. And good always to talk to you.
And thanks to all the folks out there, Jenny, that are listening to you, that are keeping the pressure on, writing the editorials to their local papers, calling into the talk stations. We, the American people, can win this. It's our White House. It's not President Obama. It's our Justice Department. It's not Eric Holder's Justice Department. And we deserve the truth out of both of those institutions. We don't deserve them operating like some South American dictatorship, which is what we're getting right now.